So hello everybody.
Hi.
Just also to the viewers.
Hi,
Okay,
Farhana.
oh, I see some comments already
Nice
among the
you.
viewers. Okay. So basically, I'm going to start, being respectful of time. I'm going to be introducing the speakers. So how we're going to do is, sorry, I'm going to just set up the format. So today we have 3 esteemed speakers, and each of the speakers will be given about 10 minutes to speak. And then afterwards, we'll go into the Q&A session. So without further ado, let me introduce briefly to our speakers. So we have our first speaker, Madam Joanna Datuk Kitingan, who's had a very illustrious and accomplished career in Sabah. Okay, not only in her capacity as a civil servant, but also as somebody who's always fought for culture and history, particularly when it comes to women. So she served as the museum director of the Sabah State Archives, as well as the executive secretary of Cultural Heritage Council under the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Environment. And she is also the chairperson of the KDCA Women Council and the state level Keamatan Unduk Madau chairperson, as well as holding a national post as the Heritage Council member of Malaysia. And as I said earlier, she's somebody who's been very passionate and accomplished when it comes to the topic of Sabahan women in history. Next one, we have somebody who's very dear to me, a dear friend of mine. So Miss Elizabeth Joanny Openg, we went to University Science Malaysia together. That was where she got her degree in English Language and Literature Studies. She then continued to obtain her Master in English Language Studies and is now pursuing her PhD study. Yes, to more women doing postgraduate study, all right? And she is the co-author of a book on Agnes Keith and other women colonial writers in Borneo. So it will be very interesting to see what her perspective is, especially on that front. And last but not least, okay, and being a gender equality organization that we are, Sarata, we also have a male representation. And we have here Mr. Richard Ker, who is the founder and president of North Borneo Historical Society, which he founded in 2011 to promote Sabah's rich diversity and heritage in the world. And I'm a huge fan of his platform. And I think since in the years since he's introduced North Borneo Historical Society, he's accomplished that objective as well. So thank you to the speakers for coming here today. And without further ado, Madam Joanna, take it away. The stage is yours.
Okay, hi. Thank you, Farhana, for the introduction. Thank you, Sarata, for inviting me to this very meaningful session. I thought nobody will be interested in history except for Richard and me. Yeah, but as Sabrina said that, in fact, she went to the museum a long time ago and saw this exhibition on the Sabahan women in history. So I'm very passionate about researching women in Sabah history because nothing much is written about it except when I was going to present a paper in New York University on oral history. So I began to go through the British North Borneo Herald, and that's where I came across the documented unwritten history of the Dusun woman in North Borneo. So I'll share some slides so that I hope this will enlighten the audience that we do have such recorded history in the British North Borneo Herald that is a very valuable historical document of Sabah. So I will just share my slide here quickly. so how do I go? Okay, I'm going to focus on a women leader in the 1800 in North Borneo, who was called Mantri Babu, the first woman in history as head woman in 1800. Because before 1800, before the British came and had this North Borneo, British North Borneo Herald to write down news about Borneo, there was nothing to, there was no reference on our women, the activities, roles, or status in Borneo. So, however, if several fragmented records of later deaths of any indication, it points vividly of the highly esteemed position of women held in the society of the days. So, an example of this account by a British admiral in 1888 of a Dusun woman chieftain called Mantri Babu. In fact, her name is Limpai, but she was given the designation of Mantri Babu, who was advised designate of the sovereign of the British of the Brunei Sultanate, in position of this describe her as a Dusun. So an example, a woman of some considerable intelligence, a head woman and member of a council, a wealthy and influential personage. So when you read such record in 1800, you are indeed very proud. I mean, as a woman, I was very amazed and proud to read such recorded history, which we never heard in our history book, which was not given due recognition. I mean, in history, in the Sabah and Malaysian history. But as you know, because I was in the archives and museum, this is what I try to tell the education that come to the museum, that this is some of our own valuable historical facts about women leaders, even in 1800s, you know. And this, so there is a symmetry of this. Okay, this is an account of that was in North Borneo Herald, 1st October 1886. We paid a visit to the village, which is situated among rich paddy plains, and this village is at present presided by a Dusun woman of some considerable intelligence. She has the name of Mantri Babu, or advisor to the sovereign. All seem happy and contented and receive us courteously and without that vulgar. I have to read this because this is, I think, a very interesting account of how they describe this woman, you see. And I think this is something that captures the character of that leader, the leadership of that woman on those times. And this is something that it should be put in history books, you know. So they even describe her as a member of a council and a wealthy, influential personage. See, they describe her house and then how it was, what it was made of. And then he said, no trouble is experienced in the government and poll tax, because the tax are promptly collected. So there was a story about this woman, why she was appointed, because during those times, poll tax are collected from the people, in fact, only once a year. But sometimes those people, like the kuncu-kuncu lah, they go to the village and start to harass the people and say, you must pay the poll tax now. In fact, it's not yet time. So this woman, Limpai, she was a peacemaker. So she managed to bring peace between this pangeran-pangeran and the local people. Yeah. So that's why she was conferred as a Mantri Babu, or a counselor in the sovereign of Brunei at that time. So it is evidence that it said that when the woman rules, there is peace, and all the around her are all green fields. Mean this woman has leadership. She can manage the people. She can manage the field around her. You see, even the buffalo, they describe how they are all all green, and no fighting in the village. So this, when you read something like this written by an admiral, it gives us a very positive account of how this woman, there is already a recognition to this woman in the old days, but there was no recognition in this time, because, well, nobody knows about the history. They didn't read history. They didn't do their research about the women. So, and I just want to show you that okay. So she was this Mantri Babu. She was a head woman, heading 34 village, 18 household, 34 people. But even then, she was called a head. She was called a head man instead of a head woman. So they describe everybody as a head man. Yeah. So, and then who was she really? In fact, she was also a Bobolian, a Bobohizan. So she has some kind of power. And that's why Dusun women are, in fact, respected in the community. And that they have what you call the mitimbang or balance kind of roles in the community. So they all have roles that make them men respect them, because they are able to foretell, like when they have to go to the tribal war, when they have to when they find medicine, herbal medicine for the sick, and also giving birth. So they do multiple roles. So these women are already leaders in themselves. And one of the most important role of the women, they are the repository of knowledge. They are the one that kept the ritual, the rites that was handed down to the younger generation, the apprentices. So they have, in fact, their own set of like the head, and then they have also like students below them. So, but what's happening now? They're already diminishing. They're almost forgotten, and the Renites is well, some of them are written down, but this, without the Bobohizan or the priestess having all this deposited in a knowledge, we wouldn't know the legend about Hominadun, about Undukadao. So these are handed down. All the belief system, all the worldviews is handed down through a generation, through these women, because women they're multi roles, but they are still very focused. So these are the women that we should recognize. They should be given due recognition. and it's already recorded in history. We have that recognized by the British, by the Brunei Sultanate, as a peacemaker, as a leader, as a head woman. So that's all. And we have, of course, first native chief in Kuala Penyu, and in fact, many more. But I'm just going through some of those that was the first native chief. But I don't think she has that issue. So I will stop here for now, because then from here we can go through the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Joanna. Wow, in such a short presentation, I learned so much more than I ever did in my 30 years of life, or 29, not yet 30. Okay, so that was, and I really liked how you packed that. And, you know, as an Indigenous woman myself, seeing your presentation really brought a surge of this feeling of pride and happiness to know that this is the history that we need to reclaim back, which is, I think, a pursuit that not only Sarata is doing, but something that each one of you, you know, whether it's yourself, whether it's Richard, or whether it's Elizabeth, is also trying to do. And so many things, I've taken some bits and we'll unpack it in the panel. So for now, I would like to invite Miss Elizabeth to share with us her presentation on Agnes Keith. So thank you very much, Madam Joanna.
Thank you for.
I look forward to the discussion.
Okay, thank you Farhana for the introduction. And yes, my name is Elizabeth. And before I start, am I clear? Yeah.
Very,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Before I start the presentation, I would like to thank Sarata organizer team for inviting me as one of the panelists for the discussion today. And very interesting, Madam Joanna. I also learned a lot from your presentation just now. But I am going to talk about women in the perspective of colonial writers. Although I have co-authored a book entitled Agnes Keith and Other Colonial Women Writers, but for today's discussion, I will only focus on Agnes Keith alone. All right. So basically, who is Agnes Keith? Agnes Keith is actually a writer, a wife. Okay, her husband is actually the officer in Sanakan Forestry. Okay, in Sanakan, so they live in Sanakan for quite some time, from 1925 until 1952, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, she was an American writer. She's not a British, but the husband is a British. During her lifetime, she produced 7 books: Land Below the Wind, Three Came Home, White Man Returns, Bare Feet in the Palace, Children of Allah, Between the Sea and the Sahara, Beloved Exiles, Before the Blossoms Falls, Life and Death in Japan, and 4 of them: Land Below the Wind, Three Came Home, White Man Returns, and it's about Sabah alone. Okay. Her first book, Land Below the Wind, received the Atlantic Nonfiction Prize Award in 1939, and she managed to capture North Borneo before the Second World War, the period during the Second World War, and the period after the Second World War. In addition, she has the most published works than the other writers, with 7 books, such as Ada Pryor, Osa Johnson, Mary Clemens, Mrs. L.S. Gibbs, as well as Mrs. Daly. So enough with the fact, I will go deeper into Agnes Keith. Okay, Agnes Keith, her issue as a writer, because she is an American writer, although during that particular time, it is all about travel writings. When it comes to travel writings, it is all about men writing stories. And then when women started to write stories, it is considered as a coffee table book. Okay, it is not taken seriously, even for Agnes Keith's book, for Land Below the Wind. If I'm not mistaken, only the Japanese managed to look at her book seriously, and because of the book, they managed to conquer Sabah afterwards. Okay. The issues here regarding Agnes Keith as colonial women writers in Sabah is because although she is part of the colonizer herself, the problem lies on her gender because she is a woman. Yes, that's the slide. Okay, because she is a woman, she is still considered as a second class, although she is part of the colonizer herself. Okay, and because of that, she also experienced what we call in post-colonialism literature as ambivalent, where you have a mixed feeling towards the colonizer and the colonized. Okay, and her stories, including Land Below the Wind and The Beloved Exile, is actually written in a as a fiction, and sometimes it's a fiction. It's in the middle. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. For Agnes Gift, as a travel writer, she is very fact-loving. Okay, she shows details, as you can see in the slides. I believe the slides before this one. Okay. Okay. She is more into fact, details, and ambivalent. Okay, it is all about fictional memoir. Her passion for detail is also illustrated through her own drawing, especially in book 1, Land Below the Wind. Her illustrations, for example, on page 279, as you can see on the slide, I believe it's the slides after this, of Land Below the Wind provides an excellent examples where she drew a floor plan of a Murut house during her visit to the place. Sorry, Farhana, but I believe that some of the audience cannot see the slides yet because I received a notification.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Maybe there's a bit of a lag in the stream.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to the audience. Okay. I think if you can just continue, is that all right? We'll try to.
Yeah, sure. All right. Okay. Beside this, she also depicts little more figures at their daily occupation in the house area based on Arusap, the helper, the family's helper. Okay, basically, as a women travel writers, she is different from male travel writers because as a woman, she has a tendency to be more sympathetic towards the colonized. Okay, that's the issue with Agnes Gift. That's her advantages as a writer and disadvantages as a part of the colonizer. Because I remember when I read chapter 2 of Agnes Gift's book Land Below the Wind, it's the book actually talks about different feet has different ways. Okay, it is very rare for a colonial writers to actually defend it, the colonized people in different ways. She actually told a story about Abanawas. It is a fact. Okay, Abanawas is actually a man of the river from Sungai Kinabatangan. I've read the real news, okay, the original news from Herald, Sabah Herald as well. In Sabah Herald, Abanawas has been depicted as somebody who is a lunatic and very dangerous. Okay, he even was murdered. Okay, he was shot to death by the police because Abanawas did something that is not according to the British law. Abanawas actually kills his wife because he saw his wife making love with another person. So according to the traditional law, he has the right to kill his wife. Okay, and then after he killed his wife, he actually met with the head of the village and informed the head of the village of what he already did. Okay, but then again, because during that time the colonizer was already in Sabah, so he was put in jail because of because he actually observed the traditional law. In different ways, Agnes Gift actually provides a story. Hi, is it okay? Provides a story from the third person point of view, where she chose to be unbiased, okay, and she actually deliver what she tried to see what she tried to read the mind, okay, of Abu Nawas, okay, and she also tells a story about how, as an American writer, a female American writer, she is actually in dilemma. Sometimes she feels that the colonizer, okay, they are needed in the land, okay, in the land of the native. However, some point of her life, she will see that they are not needed because the people of the land, okay, they have their own rules. She because of that, she has problem with her husband as well, because the husband, as a male colonizer, he didn't really look at the he didn't really has the empathy or sympathy to not much of sympathy towards the colonized. Okay, next, so different ways again. Before I conclude, okay, actually, Keith, as a writer, has successfully delivered truth in representing the era of British colonization in Borneo through multiple points of view. This enhances the realistic aspects of her writings, including Land Below the Wind, as well as Beloved Exile. And to add more to that, Agnes Keith actually talks about women as well, women of Borneo. Okay, previously, Madam Joanna talked about Limpai. So Limpai was a respectable women leaders for yes, during her time. However, because Agnes Gift is also part of the colonizer, she did not really accept the way the people of the native people living their life, especially when it comes to childbirth, because one of the chapter talks about how she's peace, because her helper Arusap's wife Kuta trying to conceive a child and also deliver a child, but then the child died because, according to Agnes Gift, the child died because they followed the natives' way of bringing up a child. However, as a reader, I believe that probably the child can still survive without Agnes Gift, because Agnes Gift gave too much information that is not relevant to Kuta at that time. Okay, because Kuta has her own belief on child for her child's survivability, and then because of the confusions, Agnes Gift trying to introduce doctor to Kuta, the child actually died. In Agnes Gift books, Land Below the Wind as well, Agnes explains the role of traditional women, okay, in their household, okay, in their household roles, okay. For example, women are more into women's gender stereotypes already there for the British household, where women cook, okay, women cook and women do all the house chores, and men should do hunting, okay, stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's all from me about Agnes Keefe and how she write the books on Borneo, and perhaps I can answer, perhaps we can expand the discussions during the question and answer sessions. Okay, so I'll give back to you, Farhana. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was very interesting as well. I mean, as somebody who's dabbled a little bit in colonial writing, I find it very interesting because I've never really seen women writing as being coffee table books type of writing. So it's just something to make look pretty in your
Yes.
living room, but nothing to take too seriously. So that
Yes.
perspective is to me quite a bit. It's a bit shocking, but I guess it's common. I mean, it's one of those things that we don't really give too much thought. So thank you for bringing that to the fore. Definitely something very interesting for us to unpack. Maybe something that Richard could delve on in the discussion as well. But for now, thank you, Miss Elizabeth. I'll give the floor
Pleasure.
to Mr. Richard.
Okay, you guys can hear me, right? Okay. Yeah, firstly, I would like to thank Sarata for inviting North Borneo Historical Society to present today. In fact, to be honest, I do not have a lot of content related to Sabah's women, but I was able to do a bit of research, and hopefully we can share some of this knowledge and then work on something collectively to promote even more about Sabah's women in history. So just a bit of introduction. North Borneo Historical Society was established in 2011. It is actually it's a platform, a digital platform meant to promote Sabah's rich history to the world. And this society was actually founded based out of accident, actually, because I'm actually from Tawau, from Sabah, Tawau, Sabah. And then when I was trying to promote Tawau's history, I did a lot of research about trying to find information about Tawau's history. So along the way, I was actually very overwhelmed and excited when I also discovered a lot of hidden treasures about Sabah's history in a lot of the different archives, old newspapers, that you can actually find them on the web. And then I started to look into Sabah's history, and then I discovered that okay, there's not a lot of places, a centralized place where you can find this information. So I said, okay, why not I start a North Borneo Historical Society to really promote about Sabah's history to the world. So that happened, and then of course the social media thing was also fairly new back then. So I said, okay, let's just leverage on these social media platforms. I believe this is going to be the platform of the future where we can share a lot of different things. So to be honest, I'm not actually a historian. I push a lot of technology and innovation in this platform to promote the history. So I get snippets of history here and there, and then share them in a bite-sized post that people can easily digest and people can easily understand. Because if you look at the amount of information that we get on a daily basis, it's very overwhelming. So instead of you sharing something and then people don't get it, why not just share small pieces that people can really absorb or probably learn something. So imagine I was thinking, if I do a daily sharing every day, so within a year you can actually learn quite a good number of stuff about Sabah's history. So some of the activities that we've been doing, or I've been doing, it's trying to find those rare historical footages from archives, and It's a lot of them actually, and it's very interesting that even from, if you see right in front of you now, right now, it's a footage taken in 1906. So probably this is probably one of the earliest footages that you can find about Sabah. And then of course I also run some Facebook live sessions talking to historians from around the world. I've organized a small exhibition a couple of years back. So those kind of things, just to build that excitement within Sabahan people, so that they will be interested more about Sabah's history. So one of the projects that we've been working on, and thankfully together with Madam Joanna, just a few years ago, was to save this station right in the heart of Sabah. So Malalap train station, as you know, previously it is one of the oldest. Previously, it was actually earmarked to be demolished for development of a township. So when I discovered the existence of this train station, I pushed a campaign on the social media, on the Facebook page, to actually see if we can work together on saving it. So it caught the attention of one Joanna back then. So I reached out to her, and then I presented her on the plan together with my teammates, and then we work on this. And thankfully, Madam Joanna was able to push this through to the state government, and managed to save this station, and it has been declared as a heritage. So, all right, okay, that's a bit of the behind North Borneo Historical Society. So, as I said, I am not a historian, but I create platforms so that people can share more about history. But these are some of my research findings over the last few days. Although this is a topic that is talking about Sabahan women, but I also want to highlight why these people here, especially Osa Johnson, needs to be highlighted, because I'm not sure if you guys are aware, Osa Johnson and Martin Johnson are husband and wives, Sabah's husband and wife, and they used to travel to North Borneo back then and to shoot movies and also documentaries, and even taken a lot of beautiful photos on Sabah back then. So as you can see, these are some of the images that were shot during the visit in 1920 and 1935. So these actually, because they're actually, specialists, right? Specialists in taking images and footages. So they get very high quality images and videos like this. And it has been published in a book called Spirit of Borneo, if I'm not mistaken. So you can see a lot of these beautiful photos. So even some of the footages that they took are available on YouTube, and you can actually search for it. So one of the things that so they captured during the trip was this lady called Philly. So Philly is, it was photographed by Martin and Osa Johnson, and not only that, they were actually highlighted in a documentary movie that was supposed to be released in 1936 or 37, but unfortunately, after Martin and Osa Johnson went back to the United States, there was a plane crash, and I think Martin was killed in that plane crash, together with the footages and that they were taken when during the trip in Borneo. So it was very unfortunate. I think a lot of people back then, they were expecting to be able to watch the movie, and it was released by Hollywood, but I think that didn't happen. So at this point in time, we do not know what happened to this lady Philly. Although if you see that guy on top right corner that looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's actually known as Logan. So Logan was known as the Tarzan of Borneo, and he was actually from Sri Lanka. He was believed to be born in Sri Lanka, but moved to North Borneo, and then he became the interpreter and translator for Martin and Osa Johnson. So as you know, they captured a lot of images and videos like this as well, and it's really beautiful. So we just want to touch on this one too. This is very important topic that is close to my heart because this is related to the World War II history of North Borneo. So as you know, there's a long history, all within the short period of the war when the Japanese invaded North Borneo back then. So one of the highlights was actually when the Australian prisoner of wars were actually fighting. First when they fought the Japanese, and then eventually they became captive, and then they had to do the Sandakan Death March, the lost history they call it. So during the march itself, there were a lot of where they were traveling between Sandakan and Ranau. A lot of people actually helped this Australian prisoner of wars, whether they gave them food, they gave them other things that help them sustain throughout the journey. And also at the same time, for example, the first picture that you see is the late Madam Chang Seo-ha. She's actually the widow of So Kim Sing, who died in the prison while serving in Borneo. And actually, I believe he was killed by the Japanese in Sarawak, in Kuching. And similarly, we have Bure, the lady with smoking, I believe there's a cigarette. It's the same case as well. The husband was also killed in a similar manner, and Halima also. So they have very similar background. They became widow due to when they were killed by the husband got killed by the Japanese. And also, I just want to touch about the importance of Hakka women in Sabah, because they are actually the biggest Hakka community in the region, and they came to Sabah through a systematic migration by the British North Borneo Company to bring in them from China, and of course to help establish the economy. So as you know, for the past more than 100 over years, probably 150 years roughly, the Chinese have contributed significantly in terms of development of Sabah's economy. And this is actually an interesting history, which I just found out not too long ago. Madam Elizabeth Choi, she was actually the family actually came from Hong Kong, and then they were missionaries, and then she was born in Kudat, and of course, she grew up in Kudat, and she had a Kadazan nanny, and it was actually one of the first language that she learned was actually Kadazan. And interestingly, due to the war, and then she actually moved to Singapore for some reason. And then of course, when the Japanese invaded, there was some history on when she was helping the military men there as well to provide them food, medicine, and those kind of things. I believe she did not return to Sabah eventually, but she lived in Singapore, and she even got the highest award from the British government, and by the Queen Elizabeth. I believe it was when Queen Elizabeth II was coronated. So in short, we have a lot of more interesting history of Sabah women. It's just that how can we all work together in promoting them? We have the technology, we have the information, and now I think it's a good time to create that story in digital format that we can all share, and of course be proud of these women who have significantly contributed in terms for world peace and also the economic development in Sabah. Thank you. That's all my presentation.
Thank you so much, Richard. Wow, that again was something that was very eye-opening for me, because obviously when we think about history of women, particularly in Sabah, I think maybe this is my own biased perspective. I immediately look back to the indigenous heritage. But what you've presented, particularly touching on during the period of the war and the post-war, particularly during the Japanese occupation, you've managed to bring this realization that at that time there was already so many races that's helping build Sabah, history as a nation, right? So thank you for highlighting the stories of the migrant communities, okay? The Hakka women and Elizabeth Choi. So definitely some histories that we need to know about, okay? So thank you so much for all of our speakers for your very interesting and insightful sharing. Now, while we wait for some more questions from the audience, and I do hope that they send in questions, I do have questions of my own, if I may hog the platform. So knowing that, we are talking about the history of Sabah, and each one of you have touched on some form of colonial linkage, right? Some connection to the colonial past. So, being an academician myself, and somebody who's very aligned with the decolonization philosophy, I wonder, how can we be critical about our past as was recorded by the colonizers, the British particularly, and as well as maybe Americans, ethnographers, while at the same time appreciating that they've done this work of preserving the history for us in absence of our own capacity, because apparently we didn't have the language, we didn't have the equipment, etc. So what do you think? Anybody want to start? What do you think? How can we reconcile that tension? I open the floor. Okay, Richard first, maybe?
Okay,
Joanna,
I will start,
Ladies first.
Farhana. I think one of the things that our indigenous people or native people lack was because we do not have a system of writing. We base all our history, our oral tradition, that's handed down. And it is of a great, I think, importance, and also good that the colonial came and recorded our history. Otherwise, we would not know that we have such a historical figure in history like Limpai, or even, in fact, I was trying to search another women like Arung Salamia, or even they have some I think a warrior woman in Brunei, but I didn't get enough written history. So written history, of course, is very important. No doubt the oral history, oral tradition also very important, but of course, along the way things can get lost, narration can get lost along the way, and you have a different story. For example, the story about the Huminadun story, where it is the father who sacrificed the daughter. But in fact, through the research and interpreting the renites of the Babahisan, we find that it is the mother who empowered herself to sacrifice the daughter. So we said it's the women, the empowering of women was already there to sacrifice, and the daughter as a sacrificial lamb to obey the parents, obey the mother, in fact, at that time, so that she can be a food to the people. So we are going to have a new twist of the Huminadun story, which will be geared to women's empowerment. And why I'm passionate about that, because it is, narration of history that is written or passed down by men, it tends to be biased towards men's power. And I have also studied like what made the imbalance of women, of the native women, because traditionally, of course, there was no, like, if, for example, a family, a father, mother going to the rice field, the father will do the mangasok, and then the mother put the rice in there. So there is always like balance lah, equality lah. And they know their roles very well. But what made the imbalances in the modern times? Of course, this is also when the British come, they employed, you know, the men first as policemen. My father was a policeman. He never went to school, but he learned how to read and write. So they have to record everything that they see, they do, you know, the cases. While my mother is left in the kitchen, left in the house with just, you know, with this new form of knowledge that the men have, she doesn't have that. So that education was, the opportunity of being educated was given to the men first. Imagine if the women, the Bobolian was given the opportunity to read and write. They will be writing all the nights and it will be recorded in volumes of books, you know, but they will remain as chanting and just doing the oral tradition. They were not given opportunity to go to school. They were not even, you know, teach how to read and write. It's only later they are asked to attend school like Sekolah Dewasa. You know, the men already up to here already. They already reached university, while our women still ABC. So that, I believe, was the imbalances that made our women far behind. But of course, now we are catching up lah. We have 50% more women in the university than men, and women are more intelligent, not more intelligent lah. They are utilizing the intelligence now. Kan Richard? Yeah. So that to me is the disparity between the indigenous women, native women, because we didn't have a system of writing, whereas the Chinese, they have the system of writing over 1,000 years ago. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was very an impassioned claim that you made there, which I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with. But I like the idea that, you know, yes, we do have the existing narratives. We can call them dominant historical narratives. But like you said, you know, because our own people are being educated and we're more aware of critical perspectives. So we do need to encourage people to challenge those dominant historical narratives by conducting more research. Yeah, so we can also authentically reclaim the stories ourselves. So thank you, Madam Joanna. Richard, do you want to add something else?
Yeah, totally agree with Madam Joanna. You know, they said history is written by the victors, right? So as you know, a lot of our history was written by the West, especially Sabah's history. But we're actually also fortunate at the same time because a lot of this history was recorded. But nonetheless, I believe we do. I mean, there's a limitation with the amount of research that we can do because there's always limited resources. For example, the number of people who's actually interested in history, for example. But I believe the platform that we have created over the last 10 years has spurred a lot of interest within the community in Sabah. So if you notice on Facebook, right now, there's a lot of different groups called Sabah History Group, and lots of them actually, and they have tons and tons of members inside. Like one group has about 50 or 60,000 people. So if you can continue doing that, pushing this effort, getting more and more people to be interested in history, we can, you know, get these people, these wonderful people, to be contributing and do more research on Sabah's history. So I guess it's still not too late. There's still a lot of work to be done. If we can get more and more people and then create more platforms and channels for them to share their stories or the research that they have done, I believe we can achieve a more accurate and less biased history.
Thank you very much, Richard. And I believe, you know, that's what each and one of you are doing in your own respective fields. Okay, whether it be Richard collating all of these photographic evidence that would paint different pictures, or whether it be Elizabeth, who's doing work on a Western female writer, but also putting on a very critical decolonizing post-colonial lens, okay, just also adding to that work. Elizabeth, did you want to add something else? Maybe in your own experience with Agnes Keith?
Yeah, I actually do agree with Madam Joanna when she said that our community are more prone to male when it comes to education. That's why our because my current research revolves around newspaper, and I stumbled upon the term Kadazan Intelligentsia. Kadazan Intelligentsia is a community of academicians or thinkers of Kadazan Dusun, but most of them are it's a male dominated community. Okay, because as Madam Joanna explained just now, we during that time women are not so into they are not given an opportunity for educations. And also coming back to Agnes Cave writings, I think the good thing about Agnes Cave is because since the indigenous people don't have a standardized writing system, they don't even have a system yet. So it's good for her to actually record all those historical facts in her narrations. But at the same time, because she's a colonizer, then she has a tendency to judge the way of the lifestyle of the indigenous people. Hence, my supervisor and I, Dr. Rashidi Muhammad Pakri from University of Science Malaysia, we have conducted a few years ago, we have conducted a research to actually compare Agnes Keith's narratives on natural birth, child care, okay, with the community of Bajau Laut in Semporna. So the Bajau Laut is actually still doing the old ways of child, how to take care of a child. They still use bamboo stick, for example. And according to, based on land below the wind, Agnes Keith's land below the wind, if a community keep on doing so, they will actually kill babies instead of saving them and, care for them. However, oral research is important. Okay, important in terms of if we wanted to make it clear that, as Agnes Keith herself said, that different faith has different ways. Perhaps it doesn't work like that in the West, but it works here. So I do hope that our future or the younger generations are keen to, to explore historical part of the history and stuff of Sabah related to Sabah. And perhaps more highlight should be given to oral history before it's too late, because these people, they are they're no longer the younger generations. They're no longer young. They are also, before it's too late, somebody has to go deep and explore the oral history before it's gone. Yeah.
Thank you. Definitely. Yeah, I do like the fact that we do have to contextualize the application of knowledge, right? It doesn't mean that it works in that context. It works in any other context. Particularly if you're looking at indigenous communities, who have very limited resources to what we call basic amenities, even basic rights, right? So of course they would have to go back or fall back on their own indigenous knowledge. So I'm going to pose this question by Sabrina, who says that I heard from someone that women in Sabah only take up political leadership as a legacy from their husbands. What are your thoughts on this? So this is quite a saucy question, I think. So who would like to take up the answer? Anybody could take up the answer the question they would like. Madam Joanna, you're smiling. Maybe you want to start.
In Sabah we have maybe 2 cases that push our women, like Tokwan Rahima had to take up political leadership when her husband passed away. And in a way, I think she was ready because she has been following her husband and she know what it is to be in politics. And the same with, I think, Jamila. And these are the two women that I know lah. And it in a way push the way that they join politics is more or less, not from their own willingness, because it's not easy to be a politician. And we can see that in so many cases in Sabah, women still lag behind. Not that they are not women, there are no women who are in politics, but it's because I think they haven't. I mean, a lot of women hasn't won yet. It's not easy to win in election. That's why I'm not in politics. And also, men is still a male-dominated area, and in fact, I salute those women who are in politics, because it's really authoritarian. That is, you get exposed, you get knocked left and right. So you have to be a strong woman to do that. But I see that some women are just by luck, like somebody didn't complete his maybe written paper, so he couldn't do it. So this woman just was there at the right time, at the right moment, and she got elected. So it will take her sometimes maybe to process being in the leadership role. But it is something that more women should go into, because I think women in politics, they are much needed there.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Joanna.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, as you said, politics is a very male-dominated territory. Even today, we don't have so many women participation or representation in politics, even at the global level. But even if women needed to fall back onto some family ties to enter politics, that I don't think that's too bad. But they do need to be more concerted towards dismantling anything that can harm women participation in politics. So if they were to take up political position and then advance the current, dominant ways of how women are still excluded, then I think that we can challenge that. We can criticize their role in politics. But if they're there in order to amplify the voices of women and truly empower them, then yes, we definitely need more of those women participating in politics.
Yes.
All right. So yeah. I'm just going to say here. So Elizabeth has just said. Okay. So Dr. Rashidi Pakri from USM suggested that this Beloved Exiles, which is a book, should be reprinted by the Sabah Museum or Sabah Historical Society, because the novel is fictional. So therefore, the author has the poetic license to represent the local characters of Sabah without much scrutiny. So in fact, the novel should be the first novel to be read for those who wish to put their hands on Sabahan fiction. So maybe it would be a good addition probably to even our own local literature curriculum for school children. Maybe, if you want to put a critical lens on how Sabah used to be represented, because I remember going to UTP, the library in University of Technology Petronas, and I saw this one novel by autobiography by an Australian doctor stationed in Lahad Datu. And I read the first few pages and I couldn't continue because it was such a horrible description of how indigenous people were like savages, didn't have basic hygiene, etc. So yeah, definitely. Okay, good, interesting. Okay, So I'm wary of time, but I would still like to pose this one question, particularly pertaining to your own expertise. In what ways do you think your platform is perfect or can be utilized to amplify women's voices? Do you see it happening now, or what do you envision in the next 3, 5, 10 years in your own respective platforms and fields? Can I ask maybe Richard, yeah, to go first?
Yeah, Richard.
As you know, I'm always into technology and innovation, right? So there's a lot of ways to do this. So for instance, when the social media was created more than 10 years ago, I already foreseen that it's a good opportunity for everyone to leverage on this platform to amplify their voices. So similarly, I believe, as you know, as we evolve day by day, a lot more new platforms are being built. Like for example, TikTok, which I'm actually not on the platform at the moment, but those are the kind of places where you can really use or utilize to amplify the women's voices, for example. And I believe it's already happening. A lot of you have even on Instagram, for example, Instagram, TikTok, you have women with millions of followers. It's like they rule like a country already. And as you know, this is a borderless world. There's always a way to do it. So I would highly encourage the young people, when you create your TikTok channels, don't just focus on yourself. See how you can use it to help empower others. I believe in this way, we can make it a better world for everyone, especially if you want to talk about equality and so forth.
Okay, thank you, Richard. But just an idea. I don't know if you're going to pick this up. Maybe Sarata and North Borneo Historical Society can do a Sabah Women in History Month, where we upload one story of influential women of all
Yes.
races.
We're open.
Well,
anything at all.
Yeah,
Okay.
that will be good. In fact,
Yeah.
to have this historical history and women written. In fact, I did the first Sabah Women in History first exhibition and women in the Sabah Museum, and we had compiled quite a lot of story, and we hope that it can still be published lah. Maybe with Sarata, with Sabah Museum, yeah. And in fact, I do have that story of what is her name? Went to Singapore, that the Chinese lady, and that Halimah. Yeah, because I think there are many more women out there, but we do not have a record of them. It's maybe handed down orally. So Elizabeth was talking about oral history. In fact, that was one of my program in recording the oral history and oral tradition, both at the Sabah Archives and also at the Sabah Museum. So in the museum, in fact, my colleague Judith and Patricia, they have recorded the Renites of the Tantagas, which is, I think, volumes of books. And also we did interview, I also did interview Bobo Hizan, which I managed to present a paper in New York in 1996, and the roles of the Bobo Hizan. Yeah, Bobolian lah, Tambunan. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely, I think we do need to fully utilize the platform that is the Sabah Museum, right? Make it more, I think, more inviting as well for the future generations to come visit there. What I also actually liked, and I wanted to touch on this after listening to your talks, is that I like, when I saw your presentation, Madam Joanna, and as well as looking at Richard's repository of photos, and then the stories that Elizabeth touched on her examination of Agnes Keith's writing, is how we can actually rethink who are the women we can portray, or who we believe to be prominent, because they're not necessarily need to be somebody in a leadership position. They can be just normal women, but probably doing some function that's very important for the functioning of a society, for the operation of a society. It could be the bobohizan, right, in a very spiritual healing leadership role, but in their own way, leadership. All right, I'm even thinking about Elizabeth's when she talked about the helper for Agnes Keith. Maybe in some ways we can look at that as something that's very important role to play as well, particularly during that period. So, and then with Richard, I remember one of the great things I love about looking at old photos is seeing how Indigenous women are portrayed. And from the pictures that I've seen, Indigenous women in Sabah, they have swag, like with the cigarettes, and then the way they look at the camera when they're just lounging at the tamu. So things like that, because typically, I don't know, like to me, when you look at Indigenous women, they're usually portrayed as very shy and very meek. But then you have this kind of photo that shows, like, look straight at the cameraman and kind of, there's a bit more attitude there. And I believe that that's something that we can kind of portray more. Yeah. Okay, what about you, Elizabeth? In your own respective field, maybe another book?
Yeah, because I am working closely. Sorry, I'm working closely with University of Science Malaysia. We have this local knowledge society where we actually try to highlight a story from various states in Malaysia regarding local society, as well as when you talk about platform, perhaps we can have this one website. Okay, my suggestions, perhaps one day somebody could actually create a one website to create a database on who's who when it comes to women, okay, leadership women in Sabah. And I think this is not something new because previously I worked with with my lecturer who actually worked with the State Museum in Penang. They have the database for who's who in Penang. So it's easier for researchers and academicians to list out the important persona, okay, including females. Okay, females, important persona, leader, whether they are leaders, actress, as well as a database including minister, for example, if we have those who are involved in politics, etc. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, definitely we do need to amplify and include those voices as well, particularly from our own local communities and societies. All right, I'm aware of the time. It's already 7:15, but we've had such a very interesting, engaging discussion so far. And we could unpack all of this more, but maybe we can have a version 2, 2.0 session, okay, later on this year or next year. All right. So sadly, we'll have to end our session for today. And I would like to thank our panelists, so Madam Joanna Datuk Kitingan, Mr. Richard Ker, as well as Miss future to be Dr. Elizabeth Joanny for coming tonight. And we hope that we will have, this is a catalyst for further discussions and activities regarding Sabahan women in history. So thank you very much for attending today. See you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Bye. To see you again.